Sirens tore through Briarview Court, splitting the quiet Atlanta cul-de-sac into jagged flashes of blue and red. Porch lights blinked on, curtains shifted. Neighbors raised their phones, pale screens glowing against the humid night. In the glare, 16-year-old Malik Johnson, sweat still damp from a half-court sprint, was forced against the hood of a squad car. His cheek fogged the paint, breath shallow. Officer Briggs planted 2 fingers between his shoulders, pressing down like Malik was evidence instead of a boy. Identification. Briggs' tone was clipped, cold. Trespassing. Looking suspicious. The words stacked heavy, as if accusation itself was enough. Before we continue, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and comment the city you're watching from. It helps us share more real stories like this one. Across the street, Richard Whitmore, the HOA president, leaned on his driveway, arms folded. His lips curled not in amusement, not in shock, but with the smug satisfaction of a man watching his rules play out. A few neighbors glanced at him, waiting for his cue before daring to whisper. The Johnsons' front door slammed open. Angela Johnson rushed out, robe flaring, slippers scraping concrete. "Malik," she screamed, "what are you doing to my son?" Briggs didn't look at her. "Back up, ma'am." His grip tightened until Malik hissed in pain. Angela's chin lifted. "He lives here. His key is in his pocket. Check the mailbox if you've forgotten our name." A neighbor half spoke. "Officer, that boy belongs." But the words shriveled under Briggs' glare. Phones kept recording, but no one moved. Malik tried his coach's rhythm, 4 in, hold, 4 out, but fear clipped it short. His chest hammered against steel. Richard shifted his weight, pretending to sip from an empty mug, projecting the calm of a man in control. He muttered just loud enough for a neighbor to hear. Standards have to be enforced. And then the air shifted the way it does before rain. The Johnsons' door opened wider. 2 men stepped out. They didn't hurry, but their stride carried weight. No uniforms, no words, just bearing. They descended the porch steps with quiet certainty. Conversations thinned, even phones lowered. Briggs noticed, squared his shoulders, and planted his feet. One man moved subtly, placing Angela behind his line. The other lifted a hand, half signal, half warning, and the neighborhood felt both. Richard's smirk cracked. He fussed with a cufflink that didn't need fixing. Pinned to the hood, Malik sensed the pressure on his back, shift not mercy, but attention tilting like a tide. He tilted his eyes just enough to glimpse squared shoulders, calm movements. He didn't know who they were. He only knew how the night bent around them. A dog barked, then went silent. The cul-de-sac held its breath. The men stopped within speaking distance. One gave Angela a nod. Relief washed her face as if she'd surfaced from deep water. The morning began like any other in Briarview. Court lawns cut to uniform length, sprinklers ticking in arcs, the kind of order the HOA prized. Malik Johnson claimed the driveway with his basketball. The steady rhythm of dribbles echoed off neat fences, sneakers squeaking against blacktop. It was his world, even if some neighbors wished it wasn't. Inside, Angela stirred a pot of stew, the smell of onions and herbs filling the small house. On the dining table sat the frame she never moved. Marcus Johnson in his Marine uniform, husband, father. Fallen years ago, but still present in every corner of their lives. Angela touched the glass, whispering as if he might hear, "Keep watching over him." Across the street, Richard Whitmore stepped onto his porch, coffee mug in hand. His eyes scanned the cul-de-sac with the practiced authority of a man who believed it belonged to him. When they landed on Malik, his jaw tightened. "Bringing down property values," he muttered. A woman walking her dog heard it, but lowered her head and kept moving. Everyone knew, disagreeing with Richard came with a cost, fines, warnings, exclusion. Angela, watching from the kitchen window, smiled as Malik sank another shot, but her stomach tightened at the sight of Richard staring. She knew that look. She had seen it at PTA meetings, in grocery aisles, at traffic stops. A look that measured her family against a standard they could never meet. Later, Malik bounded inside, grabbing water. Angela slid a glass toward him. "Stay close today," she said, keeping her voice light. "Why? I was just shooting hoops. Because you're favorites for dinner," she answered with a smile. Easier to say that than admit Richard's stare had carried more than annoyance. That evening, Richard's voice drifted across the hedges as he spoke on the phone. "That boy will ruin this place. If the board won't act, I will. A neighbor, clipping roses, froze for a moment, then bent lower as if silence could shield him. The cul-de-sac looked peaceful in the fading light, but the storm had already begun to gather. By late afternoon, the heat pressed down on Briarview Court, heavy and still. A grey sedan rolled to a stop in front of the Johnson house. Its doors opened without hurry, and two men stepped out, their movements deliberate, steady. Angela spotted them from the window and opened the door before they could knock. "Mrs. Johnson?" the taller one asked. "I'm David Cole. This is Marcus Reed. We served with your husband." Angela's grip tightened on the doorknob, then softened. "Come in," she said quietly. They didn't bring flowers. They carried a small case and a sealed envelope stamped with a unit crest. Inside the case lay a bent shard of shrapnel mounted in black velvet. Reed placed it on the table with reverence. "Your husband pulled me behind a wall when the blast hit. That's why I'm here," he said. His tone was plain, stripped of drama, and heavy with truth. Malik hovered near the doorway, eyes locked on the case. "You knew my dad?" Cole nodded. "We knew his courage, and his laugh. Both carried more weight than rank." Angela adjusted Marcus's photo on the shelf. Reed slid the envelope across the table. "A letter from the colonel, and some photos. We've been meaning to bring them for a long time." The men shared memories. Coffee burned black, rain that never stopped, a prank with sandbags that embarrassed a captain for weeks. And then the one memory that settled like stone. "Your father kept the line," Cole said. He did not step back. Malik stared at the coin. Reed handed him heavy, cold, etched with a motto. "It's not a prize," Reed said. "It's a reminder. Shoulders down, breathe. 4 in, hold out." Malik whispered. "Coach teaches us that too." Reed smiled faintly. "Your father taught half the platoon." Outside, neighbors noticed. That was Briarview Court's specialty watching. A knot gathered near a mailbox. Phones rose. Whispers floated. "Who are they? Recruiters? Looks like trouble." Across the street, Richard Whitmore stood with his arms crossed, eyes narrowed. He measured the men the same way he measured lawns and fences, like problems to be corrected. Their posture, the way Angela leaned toward them, the way Malik's shoulders squared as he listened, all of it unsettled him. Control liked to be admired. It hated being ignored. When Cole and Reed finally left, their strides carried the same calm geometry that would later redraw the night. Angela's voice followed softly. "Thank you." From his porch, Richard muttered under his breath, jaw tight. "This isn't the look we want on Briarview. I'll handle this." As the sun dropped behind the roofs, sprinklers hissed across lawns, washing the street in gold. But Richard Whitmore wasn't admiring the sunset. He stood in his study, blinds angled, eyes locked on the Johnson house like it was a stain on his neighborhood. His wife leaned on the doorframe with a glass of wine. "You're pacing again," she sighed. Richard's jaw clenched. "Did you see them? 2 strange men staying late, walking the street like they belong here." "They seemed polite," she said. "Angela has every right." "Polite isn't the point," Richard's voice sharpened. "It starts small. Then everything changes." The pause in his words carried what he didn't dare say outright. He lifted his phone, rehearsing phrases polished in board meetings and weaponized at HOA votes. Authority was his second language. He dialed. 911. "What's your emergency?" Richard lowered his tone, coating it with false urgency. "Yes, I need officers at Briarview Court. Young black male loitering near one of the homes, acting suspicious. I don't feel safe." The dispatcher asked for detail. Richard's eyes narrowed at Malik, bouncing a ball near the hoop. "Tall, about 16, baggy shorts. Doesn't look like he belongs here. Neighbors are concerned." Another lie, delivered smooth. The confirmation came fast. Units dispatched. Richard ended the call, exhaling with smug satisfaction. His authority had summoned uniforms. He stepped outside where 2 board members trimmed hedges. "I made the call," he said casually, like someone announcing lawn service. "For safety, standards have to be upheld." One neighbor frowned. "Richard, that boy lives there." Richard's smile thinned, never reaching his eyes. "Believe me, problems like this grow. Better to stop them now." The faint crackle of radios drifted down the block. A low hum of engines followed. Porch chatter faltered. Heads turned. Inside, Angela froze at the sound. Her chest tightened the way it had years ago when a patrol car slowed too long behind Marcus. She whispered her son's name, Malik, as headlights curved into the cul-de-sac. 2 cruisers rolled in, lights flashing, blue and red washing over the siding and mailboxes. Richard crossed his arms, a satisfied smirk tugging at his lips. To him, order had arrived. The cruisers screeched to a stop, lights still spinning. Blue and red washed across white siding and neat lawns, turning Briarview Court into a stage. Neighbors leaned farther out, phones up, their screens glowing like watchful eyes. Briggs was first out broad, jaw tight, slamming his door with the weight of authority. His partner rounded the other side, hand brushing his holster. Malik froze, basketball still in hand. "Hey!" Briggs barked, charging forward. "What are you doing here?" Malik blinked. "Playing ball. This is my house." Briggs closed the distance in 2 strides. "Don't get smart. Where's your ID?" "In the house," Malik said carefully. "It's inside." That pause was all it took. Briggs's hand clamped Malik's wrist, wrenching him forward. The ball rolled into the gutter. "Stop resisting," he shouted, though Malik hadn't even moved. Angela's scream tore through the cul-de-sac. "Get your hands off my son!" She rushed down the steps, robe flaring. Briggs swung his arm, shoving her off balance into the grass. Gasps erupted. Phones tilted higher. A woman clutched her chest. Someone whispered, "This is too much," but no one moved closer. From his driveway, Richard leaned toward a neighbor. "This is why I run this HOA," he said, smugness curling in his voice. "Standards matter." His grin widened as Angela scrambled back up. Briggs slammed Malik against the hood, metal vibrating beneath the boy's cheek. Malik cried out, "Mom!" Angela staggered up, fists clenched. "He lives here. That's my son." Her voice cracked with fury. The second officer stepped between them. "Mom, stand back." "I will not," she fired back, shaking with rage. "You're assaulting him." Neighbors muttered from porches, their words a mixture of sympathy and fear. One whispered, "That's the Johnson boy." Another hissed, "Don't interfere, you'll make it worse." Richard shook his head, feigning disappointment, but his eyes glittered with satisfaction. "Always trouble," he muttered, loud enough to be heard. Malik's chest heaved. The breathing pattern his coach taught him shattered into panic. The hood rattled under his ribs. Briggs twisted his arm tighter, voice low and sharp. "Where's your ID? Tell me." "In my pocket," Malik gasped. "I can't reach." The pressure increased, Malik's voice cracking again. His cry carried through the cul-de-sac, raw and desperate. "Mom!" The sound cut sharper than the sirens. Neighbors flinched. Some lowered their phones, others gripped them tighter. Angela's knees nearly buckled at the sound. And above it all, Richard smiled. The cul-de-sac was still echoing with Malik's cry when the night changed. 2 men crossed the Johnsons' lawn, shoulders square, hands visible, stride deliberate. They didn't run. They didn't need to. Presence alone carried weight. Cole's eyes scanned the scene in arcs. Malik pinned, Angela trembling, Briggs's stance, the crowd's distance. Reed's hand rose briefly, half signal, half warning. Even without words, the neighborhood felt the shift. "Officer," Cole said evenly, his voice steady as stone. "Ease your pressure. He can't breathe properly in that position." Briggs stiffened, refusing to look up. "Step back. This is police business." "Avery, you." Reed's tone cut through, calm but surgical. "Your leverage isn't control, it's pain, and everyone here can see the difference." Angela clutched the porch railing, voice breaking. "Please, that's my son." Malik felt the coin in his pocket press against his thigh. He tried to count 4 in, hold out, but his breaths came jagged. Richard stepped forward from his driveway, puffed up with authority. "Officers, you have the board's full support," he called out, loud enough for neighbors to hear. His words rang thin, desperate, as if speaking them could keep control in his hands. Neighbors murmured from porches, "They're helping." "Who are they?" Phones tilted back toward the Johnson house. Briggs widened his stance, jaw flexing. "Last warning, move back, or I'll detain you for interfering." Cole didn't flinch. "No one's interfering. We're speaking. Cameras will show the difference." Reed took a half step wider, sliding Angela safely behind their line. The move was protective, not confrontational. Briggs's eyes flicked to the adjustment, then back, frustration mounting. Richard tried again, louder. "This household has been a problem. I made the call for safety." But the sentence landed flat, answered only by neighbors' cold silence. Cole's voice dropped lower, quiet enough to force the crowd to lean in. "Release him, now." Briggs sneered, lip curling. He leaned closer to Malik, pressing harder just to prove the moment was still his. His eyes locked on Cole and Reed. His voice spat the challenge like smoke. "And who the hell are you supposed to be?" Cole didn't blink at Briggs' sneer. Slowly, he reached into his pocket, pulling out a worn leather wallet. With measured hands, he flipped it open, not to cash, not to cards, but to an ID edged in brass. "Sergeant David Cole, 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines." He nodded toward his partner. "That's Captain Marcus Reed. We served with this boy's father." Gasps rippled through the cul-de-sac. Screens zoomed in, catching the shine of the badge. Briggs snorted, trying to shrug it off. "Means nothing here. You're civilians now." Reed didn't argue. He pressed a button on his phone, raised it so all could hear. "Colonel Abrams." Static hissed, then a voice cut clean through the night. Low, firm, unmistakable. "This is Colonel Abrams. That boy is Marcus Johnson's son. Treat him with the respect his father earned. Stand down now." The words landed like an order carved in stone. Neighbors whispered his name. Marcus Johnson, the Marine who never came home. For years, they'd seen Angela's photo frame in the window. Tonight, they remembered. Richard lunged forward, desperate to reclaim the narrative. "This is absurd. That family has been trouble from the start." A neighbor's phone answered him. On speaker, Richard's own voice replayed. "There's a black kid loitering. Suspicious. Send someone quick." The recording spilled into the humid night, thin and undeniable. Silence followed, thick, condemning silence. Angela's hand flew to her mouth. Malik lifted his head from the hood, eyes wide. The truth had surfaced, not from them, but from the very neighbors who had stayed quiet too long. Cole turned his gaze on Richard, voice like steel. "You called this down on a child, a fallen Marine's child." Reed lowered the phone, his voice sharp enough to cut. "And you," he nodded at Briggs, "just assaulted him before witnesses." The words struck like a gavel, final and echoing. Briggs's grip faltered. Under the weight of cameras and Colonel Abrams's order echoing through the cul-de-sac, he had no cover left. His hand slid off Malik's shoulder. "Slow," Cole instructed, voice firm but calm. "Let him breathe." Malik lifted his cheek from the hood, the steel's imprint stamped red across his skin. His breaths came ragged but steady. Angela caught him in her arms, trembling hands tracing his forearm, counting his breaths like proof. He nodded, because she needed the nod. Reed looked at Briggs' partner. "Supervisor, call it in." The officer hesitated, then raised his radio. The word supervisor crackled out, tilting the street again. Phones had been recording since the first blue flash, but now lenses locked tighter on Angela's robe, on the coin in Malik's fist, on the brass nameplate glinting on the mailbox. Captions ticked across live streams. HOA calls cops on resident teen Marines step in. Views climbed in real time. Richard stepped forward, palms raised in mock reason. "This is a misunderstanding," he said, pitching his voice to sound measured. "I only called for safety. There have been incidents." The crowd stirred. A board member cut in, sharp. "Richard, the boy lives here. Everyone knows it." Neighbors murmured agreement. They remembered the fines for flower pots, the threats about fences, the birthday banner Richard made someone take down. Tonight, those rules looked like weapons in the wrong hands. Briggs shifted toward his cruiser, eyes darting. Reed stepped into his line of travel, not blocking but present. "Badge number." "Incident number," he demanded. Briggs froze. His partner recited the numbers, subdued, while Reed repeated them aloud, loud enough for every camera. Not a threat, a record. Angela found her voice. "My son was playing basketball in his own driveway. A phone call turned that into a crime." Richard tried to interrupt. "I'm the HOA president." The reporter who had arrived seconds earlier cut him off with a sharper question. "Sir, do you stand by your own words calling him suspicious, saying he doesn't belong?" A neighbor instantly airdropped the recording to her phone. She played it back on live mic. Richard's voice slithered out, damning and small. His smirk dissolved. His words failed. The authority he wore like a crown cracked in public. Cole turned, not performing but testifying. Marcus Johnson gave his life so men could come home. Tonight his son was pressed against a hood because someone decided a feeling was a fact. The street murmured louder. A woman near the mailbox wiped her eyes. Another man finally spoke, voice clear. "We watched that boy grow up on this block." Richard's silence became his sentence. The supervisor's car eased into Briarview Court, headlights washing over the stunned faces. He stepped out, clipboard under one arm, scanning the scene with the weariness of a man who wished this had happened on another shift. "Everyone hold your place," he ordered. Angela gripped Malik's shoulder, keeping him close. His chest still heaved, but the coin pressed in his fist steadied him. Cole and Reed stood silent at their side, still as stone. The sergeant's pen scratched against paper, each word puncturing the humid air. "Witnesses confirm the boy lives here. Incident escalated beyond necessity." His gaze shifted toward Briggs. "Effective immediately. You're suspended, pending investigation." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the porches. Briggs stiffened, jaw working, but his partner quietly stepped back, distancing himself from the fallout. For the first time that night, the cruiser lights flicked off. The cul-de-sac returned to its natural color. Richard pushed forward, voice tight. "This is all being blown out of proportion. I acted in the neighborhood's best interest." A board member answered, trembling but firm. "No, Richard, you lied. We all heard the recording." Another neighbor stepped off his porch, emboldened. "You fined me for my garden fence, said it was about values. Now we know whose values you meant." Murmurs swelled, rising into open defiance. Years of silence cracked. Richard's mouth opened, then closed again. His words, the ones that used to control the cul-de-sac, found no purchase. On the sidewalk, the HOA board huddled. Their decision was whispered, but it carried clear as thunder. Effective immediately, Richard Whitmore is removed as president. Richard spun, face mottled with disbelief. "You can't." "We just did," the treasurer replied, voice steadier than ever. Neighbors watched the crown slip. The man who had ruled through intimidation now stood alone, stripped of the authority he had hoarded. Angela and Malik walked toward their porch. Neighbors parted like a path, some reaching out awkward apologies, hushed regrets. "We should have spoken sooner. He didn't deserve this." Angela nodded faintly, her grip firm on Malik's arm. She brushed his hair back, voice trembling. "Your father would be proud tonight." Malik's jaw tightened. He pressed the coin so hard it left an imprint in his palm. The cul-de-sac, once ruled by Richard's whispers, now hummed with something else, not fear, change. The street had emptied of uniforms and headlights, but it wasn't the same quiet as before. No one looked toward Richard's house anymore. His blinds were drawn, his shadow gone. On the Johnson porch, Angela sat beside Malik on the steps. Their dinner had gone cold inside, but neither cared. Malik turned the coin over and over in his hand, its edges pressing into his skin. Each rotation carved something new: memory, responsibility, the strength to carry his father's name forward. Cole leaned against the porch rail, arms folded, watching with a faint smile. "You did well," he said. Malik looked up, still shaken. "I didn't do anything." "You endured," Cole replied. "That counts." Reed nodded, voice low but certain. "Your father taught us the same thing. Courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just staying upright when someone wants to crush you." Angela brushed Malik's cheek where the hood had left its mark. "Your father would have said the same," she whispered. "That real courage is standing when the world leans hard against you." Neighbors drifted past quietly, offering small gestures: a wave, a nod, a basket left at the porch rail. Too late for the moment, but not too late for change. Cole straightened, boots heavy on the wooden steps. "We'll check in again before we leave town," he promised. Reed added, with a hand to Malik's shoulder, "Your father's story belongs to you now. Carry it like he carried us." Malik nodded, eyes wet, gripping the coin tighter. The Marines stepped off the porch, disappearing into the dark with the same quiet gravity they had arrived with. Angela wrapped an arm around Malik, pulling him close. "Tonight proved something," she murmured. "Hate can knock, it can shout, it can bring lights and uniforms, but it doesn't get the final word." Malik pressed his forehead into her shoulder. His breaths fell into rhythm again: 4 in, hold, out. The cul-de-sac seemed to breathe with him. When hate comes cloaked in authority, truth still speaks. When fear arrives with flashing lights, honor stands taller. Justice is not a favor, it's a truth earned by standing. When hate knocks, truth and honor answer louder. Before you go, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more stories that reveal hidden truths, and comment your city below. Your voice matters in keeping these stories alive.